Did you know the LA Kings have their own culinary partner? It's Superfood, celebrating 10 years and over 1 million meals served. Since 2020, the Kings have trusted Superfood to fuel their players. Now through Simply Lunch, you can bring that same performance-driven food to your office. Because when people eat better, they work better. Visit mysuperfood.com. That's mysuperfd.com. Or call 213-973-6145. Qualified companies can enjoy a free lunch for up to 10 managers.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings. Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
All right, it's Monday. That means it's time to crown a King of the Week. Joining me to do so, all the way from Denver, Colorado, from FanDuel Sports. You know where you love her, Carrlyn Bathe. How are you doing today, Carrlyn?
Doing well, Jesse. Thanks for having me. Fresh off the plane, off the bus, and here we are.
Yeah. Now, it's a tough week because they go 1-2-0 and didn't score a ton of goals in the first two games, but they scored enough in the third game against the Ducks that I think we'll have plenty to talk about. So you know the routine. The listeners know the routine. So let's go ahead and start with our honorable mentions. Who are you going with?
My honorable mention is somebody that has been a player that we've been talking about the last couple weeks. And when Phil Deneau first was ill and out of the lineup and then ultimately getting traded to Montreal, Alex Turcotte's name was in the conversation of being a player that was going to be looked upon to step up, step into that 3C role. And he gets my honorable mention of the week because I feel like he's been handling the minutes that have been given to him and growing into these situations. And he may not be put into all the special team situations that Phil Deneau was ultimately put into while he was here. But the fact that he's getting trust from not just the coaching staff, but upper management as well to be put in these situations, I just feel like he's handled it so well and he's embraced it. And it may not show up in the goals and assists and the stats that you generally look for on a stat sheet, but if you're not hurting, you're also helping in a way. So I just feel like there's a lot to come from him and he gets my honorable mention.
You know, it's funny. He's my honorable mention as well.
There we go.
and you know, you mentioned the special teams play, and I was actually taken back because I asked Jim Hiller. I don't remember what day it was. I think it was in the last week. Certainly following the trade of Phil Deneau. And I asked Jim Hiller, so, okay, you don't have Phil Deneau anymore. We've heard Alex Turcotte talk about being in on the penalty kill meetings. We've heard him talk about paying attention and, you know, wanting a bigger role and blah, 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 blah. And so I said, you know, so might we see Alex Turcotte in a larger role? And I sort of kept it open-ended in the hopes that, you know, the answer might be mysterious. But the answer was like, nope, not going to happen. I was like, oh, all right, well, okay.
Right.
Now, maybe someday, like in the future, I guess that was the part that was open-ended, but for the time being, it doesn't sound like it. But the big play for me, and I talked to Alex Turcotte about it in the locker room this morning after practice, in that Ducks game, I don't remember the score. I think it happened in the third period. Andrei Kuzmenko got cross-checked into the corner.
Yep.
And it was number 16 on the Ducks. I don't remember his name, but based on the size of Alex Turcotte,
It was Strome.
Okay, so bigger than Alex Turcotte.
Yes.
And Alex Turcotte went over and objected, let's just say.
Yeah.
And wound up getting a penalty for it. Strome got 2 penalties, so it balanced out so that the Kings wound up at the power play. But I just thought, such a sort of easy play to overlook, but all things considered, I appreciated it as a fan, as an observer. And I actually asked Andrei Kuzmenko about it as well, since Kuzmenko was on the ground while Turcotte and Strome were pushing and shoving above him. And Kuzmenko laughed and said, you know, as long as I wasn't hurt, it's fine. Because that was my concern, was like, if a guy's down on the ground, you don't want to be having a fight on top of him. But
that's funny you mentioned that. I completely forgot, but I had written that down in my notes as like a wow. Like a wow moment, like 15 stands up for 96. And it's not that we haven't seen that a lot, but there haven't been.
And let's be honest, we haven't.
We haven't, but I think I think you can go look at the scores and all these 1-goal games. You almost can't do that. You almost can't be that risky or play with that much of an edge, because if you're the one that gets the penalty, the other guy doesn't, the team's now on the PK, you struggle, you go down by 2, you just can't be that person. So kudos to the team for having that much of a padding to be able to do the things that they probably wanted to do all season long. And that's going to be what you get more of if you have these leads, if you're able to sustain this level of play. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think we're going to see sides of players that we have not seen yet if they're able to produce the offense to allow for that.
I asked Jim Hiller about it as well after the practice, because I said, Kuzmenko gets cross-checked into the corner, Turcotte, excuse me, objects. Then later in the game, Quentin Byfield got a late hit out in front of the goal mouth from, I want to say, Vetrano. No, not Vetrano. Vetrano was
it
the one who went off
Killorn?
Yes, no,
Yeah.
Kreider maybe. Killorn was the one cross-checking with Doughty
Got it.
on the other boards. But either
I
way,
know what you're talking about, though.
nothing
Yeah.
happened to Byfield. He lay there on the ice. And so I said to Jim Hiller, do you have a preference as to what kind of response your team gives? And he said exactly what you just said, which is you have to consider the situation, the timing, the egregiousness of the play. He said, he thought that the hit on Kuzmenko was, a dirtier play. He wasn't sure that anything wrong happened to Byfield. Now, he didn't have the benefit of replay. I did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously having a 3-goal or 4-goal or 5-goal padding helps the situation out a ton. But yeah, and on top of all of that, Alex Turcotte also continues to win faceoffs, 56.4% in those 3 games. Frankly, I don't know what it's going to take to keep him off the penalty kill, frankly.
Where I think we might see him, and I wanted to see him last night, were in some of those 4-and-4 situations where they had 2 forwards out and 2 defensemen. I don't remember the 2D, but there was one specific situation that was happening right in front of me, and it was in the Kings D zone, and QB got kicked from the dot. And in that certain instance, Kevin Fiala came in and lost the faceoff. Ducks got possession. I would love to see, whether he stays out or not, see that be a test where technically they're both at the same strength, right? But it's a unique situation where maybe Turk can get that style of play with more ice and not, I don't know how to say, like, not cause any problems or anything. Like, he could maybe get that type of practice where, like, say that does come in handy. He does win those D zone faceoffs. And then, okay, maybe we do put him in on a penalty kill situation. I don't know. That was like a few specific instances where I was like, hey, this could be a good spot to see him come in.
During the Calgary game, there was a guy, I'm blanking on his name. Apologies to him if he's listening to this. I'm sure he's not. There was a gentleman in the press box from TSN. And there was a mutual friend of ours sitting in between us. And so he introduced me and we were just sort of chit-chatting. And I asked him if there were stats kept on how many times a guy gets thrown out of the face-off dot. And he laughed and said, no, but it seems like it's happening an awful lot this year, doesn't it? And I said, yeah, it does. And I don't know if the league told the refs to focus on it, but it feels like every game there's at least a dozen guys thrown out of the face-off circle.
I won't say who, but I know of they're centers. Two centers who play sometimes on the same line. And if they need to buy time, one of them will
deliberately
do
sure.
Will do the infraction to get the kick and to buy the time. Especially if there's
who got the penalty a few games ago for putting their hand on the puck in the.
It was Laferriere, and it was such a specific situation where the experience of having been a center your whole life will probably tell you that that's not something you're ever going to do. And he's,
I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen that penalty. I was like, what, a penalty for an infraction? Like, what? Yeah. What are we talking about? Anyway, sorry. So
you see a winger switch to center, usually it's center switching to wing. So there's something to learn there for everybody.
So we both agree on Alex Turcotte. Who then is your runner-up?
My runner-up, I had a hard time choosing because I wanted to go with the guy who's 1 point away from 700, and that is Kings defenseman Drew Doughty, because I think he's quietly or loudly, however you want to look at his play, just stabilizing things in his own game that is nice to see while also contributing. And I feel like he's putting on a little bit of a showcase to make sure he's in the conversation still, which the rosters come out New Year's Eve for Team Canada for the Olympics. We get it, but you never know. And so to see him continue to perform like this is very exciting. But my runner-up goes to Anze Kopitar, and it's based on last night's game and the continued chemistry he's finding with
Mhm.
Alex Laferriere. And if the stats didn't change, then he had secondary assists on all three of his goals
Mhm.
that allowed for the hat trick. And was talking with Josh Schaefer on the plane about conversations that he had with Laferriere and the way. I'll let Josh speak to those conversations, but what it sounded like was the way that Kopi communicates with Alex is something that allows for both of them to play the best types of games that are suited for one another. And it's working. And I'm loving watching this grow and kind of curious to see like what the ceiling is because I don't think we're there yet. And it's coming at a time where the Kings have been hurting for offense. And if you're not going to get it on the power play or you're not going to get it in certain situations to get it the way that they've been getting it together, I'm all for it. So Anze Kopitar is my runner-up.
Somebody said, I wish I could remember who said it. Somebody said that they felt that last night, we're recording this on Sunday, obviously, that last night was the best game of the season for not only Drew Doughty, but also Anze Kopitar. And they were like, it's no coincidence when your two best players play their best game, you wind up with the biggest, I guess it wasn't the biggest win of the season, but it's up there. And I was like, yeah, all right, fair enough. And not that either of them have played poorly, but, Anze Kopitar was dealing with an injury earlier in the year, and Drew Doughty was, I feel like Doughty missed a couple games, didn't he, with the injury? Yeah, he absolutely did.
I'll say this too. It might not have been the quote unquote biggest, but the way that they played, they won because of the way that they played. And if you look at the Chicago game, maybe they won because of the way Chicago played.
Right.
So it felt like this was a big win because of the testament to the way that the team came together and played. But anyway.
And I know that Jim Hiller said last night, I haven't heard the post-game comments, but someone told me he said that was the closest he felt the team has been this season to how they played after the trade deadline last season.
Yeah, I would agree.
There you go. If your best players are your best players, to use the old cliche. But okay, so your runner-up is Anze Kopitar, you said.
Yeah.
My runner-up is Andrei Kuzmenko.
Oh.
Because he had goals against Seattle and Columbus, and he had an assist against Anaheim. He had 3 points, and I think it would be really easy in games where the Kings lose and look disappointing for a guy like Kuzmenko to disappear, and he has not.
Yeah.
And, I am trying to get to know Andrei Kuzmenko a little bit better. It's difficult because there's the language barrier, and he's fluent in English, but there's a difference between fluent and conversational.
Yes.
If that makes sense. Like, he can communicate his ideas.
Yes.
I'm not always entirely sure, and it's probably on me because I don't, you know me very well, I don't always talk the way that I think most people expect people to talk.
And he needs things slowed down a little bit too.
Yeah. And so, just chatting with him today in the locker room, I felt like I understood what he was trying to say. I'm not entirely sure. And then on top of that, was trying to pay attention out of the corner of my eye and the corner of my ear. We had to talk to Jim Hiller, and the plane was going to leave, and so I wasn't trying to be the guy holding the whole process up because practice was at 11 and the flight was at 1. So I was like, all right, well, I don't want to be the guy that's, everybody's waiting on, but I just wanted to chit chat with him and ask him about the hit in the corner, and some other stuff. But yeah, I just thought he's played really well. And he had a move today in practice where, first of all, there's only 3 right shot forwards, on the team, if I'm not mistaken. Laferriere, Kuzmenko, and Armia, right? Perry too. There's 4 now, I guess.
That's a great question.
But I know what Perry and Laferriere look like just from seeing their face. So when I see a right shot forward make a move, I sometimes have to ask, oh, who was that? Because I just don't, and like, obviously it's easy to identify the defenseman because usually during practice they're wearing black and the forwards are wearing white or gray. So when I see a forward make a move who's a right shot, sometimes I have to go, oh, who was that? And then double check, like, was that Armia? Was that Kuzmenko? Because I just don't know what they look like yet. Or at least not like the way that I know. You see Anze Kopitar, you know what Anze Kopitar looks like.
Yes.
Anyway, the point is Kuzmenko did this more than 360 spin in air, almost falling down, saved it. Just ridiculous move that had everybody watching practice. We all went, whoa. And, I had to say, like, oh, who was that? Was that Kuzmenko? And somebody made the joke, like, yeah, who else on the team could even have done that? And I was like, Fiala could have. But I mean, obviously not Fiala because it was a right-handed shot. And like Byfield absolutely could have, but there's no mistaking Quentin Byfield. Dude's gigantic. So yeah, it was Andrei Kuzmenko. And I just thought he is keeping an unbelievably bright attitude through what has to be a semi-disappointing stretch for him, has to be a semi-disappointing stretch for the team. And even in a game where, the spotlight wasn't on him, I still felt like I think he, Turcotte, and Fiala played the most minutes as a line last night against the Ducks, even if he didn't have the most ice time in the game. And he's noticeable, right? Like you
Yeah.
just notice him. He's doing stuff. So he's my runner-up.
He also, when you think about his season, it sucks because everybody is having that type of season. So
Yeah.
it's almost like he's his best self when his teammates are also their best selves. And it's just this compounding effect, or at least it was for a while, this compounding effect where nobody was getting the support that they needed to also be their best versions of themselves. And it stinks. And like, you can look at the stats and all the things you want to, but like, if your line mates are also snake bitten, you're also going to be snake bitten. And then it just compounds. And I'm happy to see the people around him somehow shaking out of this and it allowing for him to do the things that he's been doing and produce the last couple of games, this last week. So I didn't even think of him. That's a great pick, Jesse.
I'm very curious to see what potential a line with him and Fiala has, because they don't play identical games, but
Yeah.
they are as close to one another as anybody else on the team. Like,
With improvisation, I would say.
yeah, and just
Yeah.
just vision would, like, there's a perfect example of where I was struggling to communicate with him today. I was trying to say, like, how do you like playing with Fiala? Because you guys are probably I don't know how to say it, like the most creative players on the team,
Right.
the most offensive. So like all I could come up with was vision in the moment. And he agreed. And like, I just, it could be a very interesting sort of all gas, no brakes type of line.
Yeah.
And Fiala, if Fiala has a strong second half, which he has done the past few seasons, it could wind up being really great for Turcotte and Kuzmenko because it could turn Kuzmenko's season around, frankly.
Yeah. No, and he needs that, and the team needs that.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jim Hiller has talked about too, where some people will call for, oh, you should bench this person or you should do that. Speaking about the internet, not the media. And I can see why people think and say things, but a coach knows what is best to get out of their players. And I feel like I never thought about Jim Hiller until he said it, because he had scratched Kuzmenko a few times, but then said, we need him to play a lot and high up and in all situations, because that's when he is his best. So he was not for having to scratch him often or any more than he already had, and was not for having him play in a bottom six role. And
I mean, sorry to cut you off. There's
No,
no
go ahead.
point in playing him in a bottom six role.
No, it doesn't serve him.
No, it doesn't serve anybody. Like, this team after the trade deadline last year, this team was so ridiculously balanced and effective that if it can't work exactly the way it did last year, and for whatever reasons it seems to not be working, well, they have a different top nine now, but then they need to find some approximation of what they had last season. And if that's Kuzmenko and Fiala instead of Kuzmenko and Kempe, so be it. Like, fine. Let's go. Let's see it.
Let's go.
Yeah. All right. So then you're king of the week.
I think we're going to have the same one.
I would be stunned if we don't.
We can't not have the same one.
Yeah.
That wouldn't make any sense.
No.
So in a 6-1 epic win against the Anaheim Ducks last night, it was Alex Laferriere with his first career hat trick, and he's my king of the week. Straight up.
I'll just get it out of the way. Yes, agreed.
Yeah, and I'm so proud of him. Like, I don't know why, but like, I'm sure you feel this way on a certain level too. The players we've watched develop or come through the Kings ranks, as opposed to just like someone we've acquired, like homegrown talent, I just am rooting for those players with every fiber of my being. And to see Alex Laferriere, the joy on his face, all the hats were picked up at one point, and they cut back to him on near the bench, and he just like knew that and smiled super big, and the whole crowd went nuts again. Like, you just you can't not be happy for this guy. His fiance was in attendance. She's the one. I've got some tea. She is the one who purchased the new shoes that he got for Christmas.
Okay.
That in the morning when we were doing
Yeah.
media at morning skate, he said he got some new shoes. But he was asked if that maybe would provide some swagger. He said, "I hope so," and it did. And he wore them. He had wore them into the rink. That's what he was wearing the same shoes every day into the practice rink. And Lacey said that, yeah, I needed to get him a new pair. It was time. So kudos to Lacey. She gets an assist on the King of the Week.
Well,
And-
along with Kopitar, right?
yeah, and a
Yeah.
Kopitar as well. Yes, I'm so proud. I feel like a proud mom, and it's not coming out of nowhere either. He's getting these chances and finding himself in certain situations, and he's a different player than, I'm going to bring up an older king, former king, Alex Iafallo, where when Alex Iafallo played with Anze Kopitar and the different areas of the ice we would see him in and the work that he would do and help produce for his line, I see it in a different way in Alex Laferriere, but I see it contributing to the same outcome, and I just see the growth of his game and where he's trying to put himself and where he's finding himself, and not to mention the switching from wing to center and back again. It's just impressive, and he's taken on every role with a lot of hard work. He's just a workhorse, and he gets my King of the Week.
I think he's got a higher ceiling than Alex Iafallo. Maybe like the same floor, but I just think he has more versatility, and I'm not sure. I hope that doesn't sound as a knock against Iafallo, but like his 3 goals came in 3 completely different ways.
Completely.
And that was what stood out for me. Is like the first goal. I don't even remember the first goal anymore. Was that the one where he's out front and Kopitar found him?
Yes.
Or whoever found him, and he was like, 5 feet away from the goal mouth, and he just banged home the shot. And then the second one was that breakaway, and then the third one was the long bomb.
Yes.
So 3 totally different goals. And listen, I'm going to be honest. I can't remember if I've said this before this season or not, but I have never quite understood the vision that other people have for Alex Laferriere. I don't have a problem with him. I don't think he's a terrible player by any stretch of the imagination, but the way people talk about him, I was always kind of faking it. I was kind of going like, yeah, all right. Well, everybody else seems to think he's the bee's knees. So I'm not going to stick my neck out because I didn't think he was terrible or anything. I just was like, all right, yeah, great. Alex Turcotte. Or excuse me, I get Turcotte switched all the time. Laferriere. This past week, not just the game against the Ducks, but the last maybe 6 or 7 games, really, I've started to see it.
Yeah.
I've started to see like, okay, when he is on his horse, when he's playing with confidence, when he's not even just what he does with the puck, but when he's getting open and giving looks to Kempe and Kopitar, when he's doing everything, now I sort of see it. Now I go like, aha. Now I see it. And I was sort of annoyed at the conversation about him as a center previously for totally different reasons. Now I'm like, well, you can't make him like, no, he's a winger. He's great. Like keep him and Kempe together forever. Because if you move him to center, now you got to replace him. And if he's going to play as well as I think he's been playing lately, that's no easy task either. So yeah. And to your point about, sorry, I'm backtracking all over the place. To your point about rooting for the guys that are drafted and coming up, I made a comment last year on Twitter that somebody sort of got snarky with me about, because I said, listen, there's a part of me that wants every Kings team to be made up exclusively of drafted players.
Yeah.
And I realized that unintentionally is a slight on players who weren't drafted by the Kings, which, listen, at the time that I made that comment, Phil Deneau was on the roster, and obviously I love Phil Deneau, but yeah, I have that impulse that you're talking about, right? Like I dream of a day where the goaltenders are Carter George and Hampton Slukinski, and the defense is Brant Clark, Mikey Anderson, Bruce Devich, Woolley, just exclusively guys drafted by the team, 1 through 12 on the floor, 1 through 14 on the floor was just all draft picks, all guys that we followed and know where junior team they played for or college or wherever. And We know everything about them. It's just more fun that way. Not that it's not, listen, the Kings won the cup twice with guys imported from all over the place, but they
Right.
also had a ton of draft picks. And yeah, it's nice. Let's
It
put it that way.
is. It's nice. And going back to what you said about maybe not seeing what people saw in him right away, like somebody at a level higher than what we get paid to talk about had to have seen the hockey IQ come through
Hmm.
and know, when he was playing in college, what type of player he could be or was already. And I don't know if you remember in his first game, he dropped the gloves.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it was like,
Yep.
what? So I think he also established who he could be or what he was down to do, or that no challenge is too big. He surprised everybody when he did make the team. Even Jim Hiller still talks about that. He was the best surprise, like coming out of training camp that year.
Hmm.
It, I don't know. It kind of started too when he was a black ace for when the team was playing Edmonton, and it was like just him being around the team and being a gamer. And he didn't get a game in, but like it was the start of that. So I think the people that are paid to see those things saw it the whole way through. And then you go back to his dad Rob, he is a Division 1 hockey player and in another life, and coached and probably was able to give him insights that you give a leg up for a player that's coming through the ranks and always will continue to progress in their hockey career. Like there's no doubt in my mind, this isn't confirmed, but there's no way the two of them don't talk about hockey like day
Oh
in
no, of
and
course
day
they do.
out.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure.
So
Yeah.
I got to imagine like having that in your toolbox as well, like a dad who coaches still and has like a hockey school developing players, and like that's such an incredible asset. And if there's something he can't talk to Jim Hiller or his teammates about, like to hop on the phone and get that insight, like that's incredible. So all things that are just contributing to the growth that we've seen that maybe you didn't see from day one, that all kind of makes sense. And it's exciting to see
Marchinetti,
where it'll go.
whenever we have the conversation with Marchinetti about best player available, he always talks about his tier system. And he says, if you have 8 guys in the same tier and they're all the same position, at that point, you might as well take the guy with blue eyes, I think is his joke, right? Like it's arbitrary. For
Yeah.
me, it's coach's son, right? Get me the coach's son. If all other things being equal, one kid's dad is a coach and the other kid's dad isn't, give me the coach's son.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
100%.
love that.
Yeah, so Alex Laferriere scores a hat trick in an incredibly important game. So he is the king of the week. So congratulations, Alex Laferriere, this week's king of the week. So, Carrlyn, I had a question this morning and I asked Jim Hiller after practice, and I had literally never thought of it until I can't remember if it was yesterday. It must have been yesterday because yesterday after the morning skate, Darcy Kemper came out onto the ice after the goaltenders had left already. So there were guys still, buzzing about on the ice, but it wasn't like really during the morning skate. But I saw him out there. He was in full gear, pads, helmet, like the whole thing. Like he was out there.
Yep.
And then today he was out there, full pads, taking shots, participating in practice. And I thought, well, goalies don't have a red no contact jersey. And generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, if we see a guy in a red no contact jersey, okay, at least 1 or 2 practices in red no contact.
Yep.
Then probably 1 or 2 in full contact. And then you can start to expect to see them on the roster. Now there have been there have been scheduling issues, whether, like earlier this year, Fogle and Doughty were coming back. Fogle got, I think, 1 skate in a red and then was activated, and Doughty didn't have any, but there was like a break and the team had been on the road and he hadn't gone with them. So he hadn't participated. But generally speaking, that's the rule of thumb. But with goalies, no red, no contact jersey. So I asked Jim Hiller, like, how do we know? Like, how do we know?
How do we know?
Because
Right.
he's been very reluctant to give a timeline, which I assumed meant concussion and meant bad, who knows, right? It could be
Yeah.
forever. But there was Darcy Kemper participating in practice today. So I thought, oh, well, I mean, he's participating, so it's not going to be forever. And so I just said, like, well, without a red no contact jersey, how do we tell? And Jim Hiller's answer was, yeah, that's true. Obviously, we're not going to put a goalie out there in red no contact because you're not going to make contact with the goalie anyway.
Right.
He's not going into the corners and and taking hits and everything. And he just said, we wouldn't put him in at full practice if we didn't think that he was ready for it. So I'm assuming that means that Darcy Kemper is at the stage where he is kind of unofficially in a red no contact jersey, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's not something we've really thought about before either.
I never thought about it before in my life.
He got injured twice last season.
Yeah.
And you look back and it's like, okay, so were they easing him back into practice? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I wish
I take a lot of notes. He's not the first goalie to get hurt either, right? Like it must have happened dozens of times over the years.
I take a lot of notes too, and that's something I've not notated. So it's interesting. I was going to ask for you, and like I mentioned, when we land in a new city, training staff goes immediately to whether it's going to be the practice rink that we stop at first or the game rink and sets up the room. So they get ahead of it before any player arrives the next day. So they were gone and didn't even want to text and ask because if they're gone, they're working. So kind of let that be. But it's something that I think we could get in like an even more detailed answer on, because Darren Granger is probably instructed to put out the colored jersey that needs to be put out, and for when and why and all that stuff. So it'd be an interesting thing to get like a clear note on. And for the way that he comes out in practice, I think for guys, I mean, this is a no-brainer. They're going to know it's Darcy and maybe the drills are designed in such a way where he's not going to be receiving any drills that would like typically be considered the version of a goalie contact that we think of, which would be a hard shot or like some, net front play. I don't know. So it is interesting, and it makes you just get your gears turning on his timeline. And it's been a fuzzy timeline, and maybe it's one of those fuzzy injuries where how does it feel today, or how are you feeling today? Because we don't know what it is. We just know that it happened in the first period in the game in Dallas on that last road trip. And we know that it's been significant enough to take him out all this time. So, but a fuzzy enough injury where you are putting him on the ice. So there's some level of, I feel good enough. But what is the indicator of, okay, now I'm ready? And when will we know that? Because there's no red jersey. So
yesterday after morning skate, right, I saw him on the ice as we were standing around waiting for them to open up the locker room. And then today, when I got there for practice, at Toyota Sports Performance Center, you go up the stairs, you enter, so you're one level above the rink. And as soon as the rink came into view of me, right, Daryl was talking to some fans, as he always does. And the first thing I could see was all three goalies on the ice right there at the net. And I was like, oh, all right, well, I guess Darcy Kemper's back. So now it doesn't sound like he'll play against Colorado. It doesn't sound like he's back. But
and I wish I could confirm if he were on the plane or not, but I got seated so early that I don't get to see everybody who comes on.
I can't. My hunch is he probably wasn't, because it's a one gamer with lots of days off. So he didn't go. I don't remember what
San
trip
Jose.
it was. Yeah, he stayed home, right? And they called up Copley for one day just to back up. So my hunch is he probably won't. He's only had one practice, but closer than not. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And we'll have to look into it. Anyway, Carrlyn, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it, as always.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a while, Jesse. This felt great.
Has. Yeah. And Happy New Year. And we'll see you. Well, we'll see. I'll see you on TV tomorrow, but I'll see you in person the 1st, right? 4 o'clock,
yes.
I think that game is?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll see you soon. Happy holidays, Kings fans. Thanks for having me, Jesse.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you soon.